Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second session of webinar, the webinar presentation of the projects of the Lab 03, the Media Lab Matadero. My name is Eduardo Castillo Vinuesa. I'm the head curator of Media Lab, and today I will be moderating this session to present the 8 selected projects for our upcoming collaborative prototyping laboratory. For those that are joining or are meeting us today and don't know what Media Lab is, Media Lab is institutional platform for research, creation, and experimental production, which is driven by the dynamics of the commons. We are a cultural space based in the center of creation called Matadero Madrid, and we are a publicly run institution promoted by the municipality of Madrid. Here, what we do is a place that fosters community participation and civic engagement through the tools and talents of artists, critical thinkers, designers, and scientists, as well as between different kind of disciplines, institutions, organizations, and industries. Media Lab somehow understands culture as a kind of social technology that when properly oriented has the potential to transform the geophysics and geochemistry of the planet for the benefit of all the entities that conform it. Today we are here for one of the main activities of our Lab 03. And for those that doesn't know what a lab is, or labs that are conceived as interdisciplinary research and collaborative production laboratories are biannual programming cycles that are designed to specifically address Media Lab's main lines of research. We do this through a series of collaborative prototyping labs, like the one we are currently presenting today, different artistic projects, transversal workshops, critical seminars, and different kinds of public events. The aim of these labs is to build communities and produce projects around Media Lab's different lines of work, which the intention to incorporate those projects into the long-term programming lines. Today, we are here for the 3rd iteration of this kind of program for our Lab 03 that started in June 14th, and it's going to be ongoing until February 2024. And we are somehow offering a journey into the core ontology of intelligence itself, intertwined, of course, with the planetary potential necessary with the recontextualization of the term intelligence. So distributed cognition, cybernetics, non-human intelligence, artificial general intelligence, complex systems, alien semiotics. These are just some of the topics that are at the core of Synthetic Minds, which is the name of this 3rd lab. Together with our communities and several experts, we want to explore the role that the deliberate composition of intelligent systems will play in shaping our collective future. And of course, here, we're talking about many different kinds of intelligence, of course, artificial intelligence, but also other kind of non-human and non-machined one that operates at different kind of scales and in different ways. The main activity of the lab is our collaborative prototyping laboratory, which is a workshop that we use to develop different kind of projects. The way in which we develop this project, we select this project, is a very, very specific. Basically, the prototyping lab opened 2 different kinds of open calls. The first open calls that we launched like 2 months ago is an open calls for promoters and projects. So once we announce the topic of the lab, Synthetic Minds, we open a call to receiving different projects that engage with these topics, and we receive different proposals from people from all over the world. Last week, we selected the 8 projects that we are going to be developing for this 3rd iteration of our labs. But what we do, instead of just developing them, is to launch a second phase of open calls. And this open call, instead of looking for projects, what it does is looks for collaborators who wants to join one or several of the 8 projects that we have already selected. That's why we are here today. We are here to present the 8 projects and the promoters of those 8 projects that we have currently selected for the LAB 03. And the idea is that with this webinar, we are also launching and opening the call for receiving different applications of collaborators, different people from different disciplines, and again, from different parts of the world who wants to join any of these different projects to help us to develop them. That part will take place in Madrid, physically, offline, at the end of January until the beginning of February, in a very intensive workshop of 3 weeks, where along with the promoters of the projects and the 3 mentors that have been curating the whole LAB 03, Bogna Connier, Ed Keller, and Bani Brusadin, we will join a community of around 40 people to be developing these projects. And this project after that will be presented in a big event that we do, which is our Open Lab, in this case, the Open Lab 03. So without further ado, let's start giving the voice to the different promoters of the projects. I would like to start with the first project of today's, which is called Latent Intimacies. That's going to be presented by Vitas Jankauskas. Latent Intimacies propose experimental, open-ended exploration of potential forms of intimacy between humans and machines, usually through open source language models. It is somehow a performative conversation between a human and a voice agent object in which both entities expose themselves to each other. So without further ado, Vitas, it's a pleasure to have you with us and looking forward to know more about Latent Intimacies.
Thanks, Edu. Thanks for this opportunity. Let me just share my screen. There you go. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, cool. So my name is Vitas. I'm an artist, designer. I'm also an educator. I teach things related to media art and media design. My practice, I'm not going to talk about it extensively since the time is very limited, but I'm mainly interested in domestic technological objects. You can check out my portfolio if you want to see more. And this project is also sort of leading into that direction, which is what I like to propose for this particular collaborative residency is to create an object, as Edu said, a conversational AI agent that would explore alternative notions of intimacy. And sort of the discourse that I will be holding today is like maybe pushing towards the idea of sort of intimacy as in often sexuality, but it's not necessarily like it doesn't, this is a message to potential collaborators, is that it doesn't have to go specifically in that direction because intimacy can mean many things. But essentially, I've been working with voice assistants for quite a while. And this is like an example that I oftentimes show is that the 2 movies that probably a lot of us know, one, like both of them have a voice assistant in them, and one aged well and the other one didn't. And the one that did age well was the Space Odyssey, because we still, despite years and years of AI sort of progress, still have this looming overarching fear that AI will take agency and sort of kill us all or refuse our disobey our command and so on. Whereas Her, which is, I mean, Spike Jonze is a brilliant director, but kind of is already sort of surpassed in terms of where mainstream intimacy or like mainstream idea of how humans bond romantic relationships with machines is kind of already surpassed, because I think that it was like a very cute vision of sort of AI replacing the human, whereas I think that it's going already beyond that, especially in the mainstream culture. And this is not a directly related example, but I don't know how many of you have played the game Detroit Become Human, which is this sort of half game, half essay, half series, I guess, in which a future relationship with humanoid robots or with androids is explored. And I think it's interesting because in there we kind of see this again, human to machine relationships that sort of are shaped as they evolve. And what's interesting for me is that several years ago, a lot of game character models became available and outsourced or copied or sort of hacked, leaked, and so on. So what happened is that there has been a lot of fan-made videos, and notably porn videos that are now available on all kinds of, like on Pornhub and all the other websites, that kind of push the idea of like CGI, sort of CGI sex to a certain extremity, which is sort of, to me, it's like a message. And again, going back to her, it's a message that what like the future of AI or like technology, sort of mainly intimate, mainstream, again, perspectives towards intimacy is like this always wanting more and always pushing to like a more saturated version of what is available now. But this is not the case everywhere, and I love this. I know who knows that this. It's like a Internet of Sex Toys Index, which is sort of a community Wikipedia of different sex toys, the open source protocols that they support, different forms. Some are community built, some are community hacked. This was mainly developed during COVID when VR chat became kind of a go-to place for exploring online sexuality. And I think that it's very interesting to look at the fact that the sort of online communities, like open source communities, are much more creative in terms of exploring, you know, what the future of like this very intimate and very like, it can be sexual, but it also doesn't have to, like, relationship can look like. And so this one thing that is interesting for the project I want to work on is the form, and I will get back to it in a little bit. And then the second thing is, as I said, I've been working with voice agents. So another thing that I want to look into is actually returning back from this strong imagery into voice-based interactions. And I wanted to show 2 examples, and I hope the sound is available.
Listen to my whisper. Listen to my fingers tapping. Let me take care of you.
So this was example 1, and then let's hear the example 2.
I'm really good at whispering. Relax. Let me help you. Let me help you fall asleep. Listen to my fingers tapping.
So this was like an AI, sort of again, AI twist on ASMR. And these are 2 different algorithms. One is the state of the art, which is called the one by 11 Labs, which is sort of used more and more now by all the kind of AI generated cinema trailers and so on and so forth. Whereas the other one is like a open source, officially said it's developed for research. So again, like an uncensored open source version called Bark by Suno AI. And I think I really like how it sounds. So in the beginning, it sounds more natural, but the flip side of it is that it's completely uncontrollable. Like every time you issue a new command, it might become a queer voice. Suddenly it will sound male. Suddenly it starts singing in autotune. And it's like, and also all these like noise artifacts that you heard in the beginning, it's like very heavy, very inefficient. And to me, I was making in my proposal parallel with Burial's music, because Mark Fisher in 2009 wrote sort of did an interview with Burial, the musician, and sort of they were talking about the fact that he kind of manages to conjure, like take a lot of noise and then conjure vocals out of it, sort of like bringing back voices from the ether. So for me, one of the interesting aspects about AI is this vulnerability of admitting that AI is also very human, and kind of bringing those voices back, bringing the voices back from the data sets. So I think that one of these things were like sort of de-gamifying our relationship with AI is also about admitting that it's not perfect and this is the way it's supposed to be, rather than trying to get it to be more and more human. And then the final bit is text. So again, this is probably the most sort of known example, is that those are 2 algorithms. I think Versal is like a software that allows you to compare different algorithms. And I was just asking again, just for the fun of, so a lot of this is just like quick experiments while I was writing the proposal. But I was asking an AI generative model to imagine how like an artificial intelligence in the future could enhance an experience of a human couple. So obviously the mainstream model kind of refused to answer, whereas the model on the right, I'm not saying it's perfect, but already we can, like, you can see that there's a certain, like, people who have worked a few years ago with things like GPT-2 will know what AI nostalgia is, in the sense that, like, sort of longing for models that were maybe less precise, but also more interesting and less censored in the way of what you could achieve with them. So this is kind of like these three different facets of the project. So like text, voice, and form. And what I would like to be working with on this project is first writers. So working at the intersection of 90s phonerotics and prompt engineering. It's a bit of a joke, but the idea is that I would like to, I think that a lot of the conversations or a lot of the intimacy through AI verbalization of text happens basically based on input. So if you're not very creative in asking the right questions, then the answers that you will get in, and we see the chats with Replica, for example, can be very dull or can be very interesting. So I feel like a writer would be the right person to sort of test the algorithms and kind of try to imagine interesting conversations. And then I would like to work with object designers. I can do a little bit of objects myself, and these are just, again, some samples that I spend hours like trying to generate. This is just a starter prompt, but the idea would be to sort of explore form, whereas I would be working more on the kind of interaction side. And then the final outcome that I'm looking for is, again, what Edu said, is like a series of exchanges around intimacy with an experimental conversational object. So I would like it to be a performative experience with, let's say, a human or humans and this object that we will build. And the final thing, I know I will be going over time soon, so I just wanted to kind of extract this point from my proposal, which I think is core, that latent intimacy for me constitutes an extrapolation of humans from the data set, showing that they are part of it and part of the model. And then along with the embrace of algorithmic failures, noise, as denominators of machine vulnerability. And then through open source alternatives and language generation, speech synthesis, we can form or explore at least new relationships while we still have time, while it didn't go into this complete human simulation. Anyway, thank you very much. And I hope I didn't take my time.
You were perfectly on time, Vitas. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Well, that's the first project, but let's move on to our next one, which is called a Parliament for Heliotechnics, which is a multidisciplinary collaborative project examining future solar geoengineering lore and its black holes. The idea is to utilize speculative fiction studies and collaborative worlding with AI to use legislative protocols with machine-generated, multi-species, and atmospheric point of views. The collaborators who join this project will work together to produce a hybrid solar constitution that expands legal and technological parameters as it works towards a planetary scale intelligence for solar futures. The promoter of this project is here with us today, which is Alice Bucknell, which we are super happy to have you with us and looking forward to expand a little bit more into a Parliament for Heliotechnics whenever you want.
Cool. Thank you so much for the intro. Let me go ahead and share my presentation real quick. Cool. Is that all good? Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much for the invite to be part of Synthetic Minds. I'm really looking forward to spending some time together in Madrid next year. So yeah, this is just going to be like a short pitch for this project I have planned. Before I start that though, I'll just say a word or two about myself. My name is Alice Bucknell. My pronouns are she, they. I am an artist, writer, and educator currently based in Los Angeles. My work deals a lot with speculative fiction strategies, kind of figuring out and speculating on new and emergent relationships between like architecture, technology, ecology, magic, and language. And this project kind of comes out of a new-ish research strain for me, which I'm really excited about and looking forward to, which is the concept of planetary governance, and thinking about ways in which like new AI-enabled planetary and climatic sensing data can basically be integrated into legal frameworks surrounding climate futures. So yeah, that's like a lot of words. And hopefully as I go through the presentation, that'll make a little more sense. But if you have any questions or just want to know more, then please feel free to reach out. You can find my contact details at the bottom of this page. And yeah, happy to answer any questions if you're solar curious, but like maybe not 100% sure if this is the project for you, then just hit me up and we can chat further. Cool. Let me shrink this guy down. Okay, a little hard to see. I'm not sure where my mouse went, but whatever. Okay, so basically, A Parliament for Heliotechnics is the name of the project. And it's basically going to be this kind of mixed hybrid research and development project that ultimately takes the form of a live action role play exercise. So the bulk of our time together will be spent kind of inhabiting these different personas within this sort of like mock parliament style interaction or interchange, where basically like the participants in the lab, after having conducted their own research and uploaded it to our shared arena channel, which will be using the collective data of which to also train an AI language model. But I'll say more on that in a sec. Basically, yeah, like all the participants will get the chance to sort of embody and sort of pitch their proposals for this like solar governance legal document, this fictional planetary governance document. And people will sort of be able to take the perspectives most interesting to them. But these personas may take the shape of the atmosphere, the sun, clouds, potentially, AI, humans, non-humans. Like I'd like to kind of keep the format pretty nimble and flexible and open, and just kind of up for whatever sort of comes out in the first week of our 3 weeks together, which will be dedicated to this sort of like collective research, archive building, and lore building. So yeah, the project is definitely situated within, like I say, it's collapsing the border between speculation and the realm of the real. So we're looking kind of at plans for solar geoengineering, which is the modification of the Earth's atmosphere. Currently, the most popular proposal that's undergoing research and development within the EU and the US is this technology called stratospheric aerosol injection, which is essentially this proposal to spray these tiny little beads, these little particles into the stratosphere, so like the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere, thereby reflecting partially some of the sun's rays across the entire planet, and artificially cooling the Earth. Of course, this has like massive legal questions, also just technical questions, like how would this actually work? Like functionally, how could this technology actually do the thing it's said it's supposed to be doing? Also, like how will the impacts play out? Like, will it be, like this mythology of it being this sort of like universal, like equally distributed apparatus, which is, yeah, obviously not the case. But also kind of thinking about possibilities of this technology sort of conjuring up unforeseen extreme weather events. Like there's been some speculation already that it will kind of create like worse hurricanes or like really intense windstorms. So yeah, it's sort of, we're going to be sort of lore building and looking sort of into the sort of possibilities of such a speculative technology and sort of responding to it in an equally speculative turn through this constructed like paralegal document. I'll just skip over that, but that's basically the response to the lab's sort of proposed research lines. So I'm focusing mostly on the coevolutionary emergence track, which is sort of looking at, yeah, like how both like human and non-human or like synthetic intelligences can sort of be integrated within the framework of this mock parliamentary session that we're organizing together. And I mean, these ideas aren't coming from nowhere. There's a really beautiful project called Planetary Personhood by a group called Non-Human Nonsense, which was released a couple years ago. And I'm sort of piggybacking or extrapolating on that project, but sort of turning the lens back to our own planet, because Planetary Personhood was this project to sort of use like anthropological personhood status in order to like assign that status to Mars in order to protect it from future human development or inhabitants. So I'm interested in the ways in which like questions or limitations around human agency over both our world and other worlds to come could potentially be curtailed or problematized or given a sort of sense of friction or trouble through these sort of speculative legal frameworks. So I mean, yeah, like outer space laws is definitely an interest of mine that I've been thinking about for a while. So now I'm sort of returning the focus back to the Earth. Here are your questions. Here are our questions. So kind of thinking about like what technologically augmented ecosystems look like. Questions around planetary governance. So if we do have this sort of like technologically altered or like, I don't know, I guess terraformed isn't the right word, sky formed, atmosphere formed. Like if we do have this sort of atmosphere that has been shaped so drastically, that, you know, will be shaped so drastically by like planetary scale technologies, what does it actually look like aesthetically? How do we govern these politically, internationally, planetarily? What's the role of a human in shaping these futures? And what's the role of the non-human, basically? Fabulous essay by Elvia Wilk that we will definitely be getting into during the workshop. Yeah, I mean, in addition to sort of looking at like critical histories of solar technology, like this essay is fantastic, and we'll be looking at a lot of like decolonial approaches to technology, like solar tech, and kind of understanding how even something as seemingly innocuous as a greenhouse or solar panel actually does have this kind of embedded infrastructure of cultural bias and inequality. So that's sort of like going to be one of the cornerstones of thinking about solar futures in a more equitable or like post-human lens. It's like actually doing a lot of digging and groundwork to remove some of the more problematic, or at least like, you know, examine the more problematic histories of that technology. Fair warning, the garbage guys have just arrived, so it might get a little noisy. I apologize. Yeah, also thinking about planetary sensing models and like using AI technology to potentially render data or language, non-human language, synthetic language, in a way that's legible to us as humans, not like as the end all be all, of course, because that would be this like anthropocentric dead end, but thinking about ways that if this data does become legible, it does develop a voice, how can this data then be leveraged within these sort of speculative governance models? These are just some references. We'll be looking at a whole mix of stuff, like some new materialist philosophy, some ecological philosophy, actual companies, like this Reno, Nevada-based Make Sunsets, which, yeah, is sort of hopping on, perhaps preemptively pre-gaming the solar geoengineering private market. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at Derecho, who is a supercomputer based in Wyoming that I'm sort of obsessed with right now, that just got built this past August, so like just a couple months ago. And Derecho is going to be running a lot of tests and climate modeling on stratospheric aerosol injection proposals. So Derecho is kind of going to be one of the protagonists potentially in this planetary future fiction narrative, both for us in Madrid and also in the world as it plays out in real time. So yeah, yeah, could say more about this, but also, I mean, yeah, we'll be looking at fiction, nonfiction, theory fiction, history, futures, news, as well as some, like ecological theory, like Daisy Hildyard's beautiful text, The Second Body, and also just some really stunning work on expanding AIs, or our understanding of AI in general. So like Kate Crawford's Atlas of Autonomous AI. Here's the general framework. We'll be doing, like I said, collaborative research and lore building, creating a shared arena channel. My thoughts on this is actually potentially and sort of where I'm going with the workshop being more of a sort of parliament, right? Versus just straight up hard science or AI visualization or just content generation. It's actually the sort of the social components of the parliamentary process, and kind of thinking about ways in which if we're sort of playing the act of a sort of planetary governance model, what kind of information could that tactic uncover in a more social dimension. So yeah, there's this LARP component, which is going to take up the bulk of our time together. There's the construction of a legal document, and also the construction of this language that we're going to be developing together, kind of, like I said earlier, training this custom model on the data that we uncover, and also on our own sort of paralegal document for Solar Futures. The final endgame will be to present our research findings and to present the paralegal parliamentary document within an exhibition held at Media Lab. Final format and output, potentially TBC. We'll sort of refine it as we go. I mean, I think it would be very cool to have an audiovisual component. I'm imagining there's ways that we can activate the parliamentary document somehow, but this is very much an open-ended, non-hierarchical concept building, world building. So yeah, look forward to kind of hearing your thoughts on how to communicate our research to the broader public. These are the folks that I am super interested in saying hi to. Hopefully this project is also interesting to you as well. I think generally artists and writers interested in climate futures, planetary scale technologies, and speculative planetary governance models. Data scientists, climate researchers would love to have you on board. Any sort of environmental / legal experts and or invested dabblers. If your interest is really where this sort of language and dialogue can get situated in politics and law, then for sure come on board. This will be a fun moment for us. Creative technologists of all sorts, speculative fiction authors, filmmakers, and just to run the whole gamut, artists who have practices wherein they're already sort of collaborating with AI and potentially building their own custom models, whether that's image or text. I would love to hear from you. So yeah, that's it. Just a reminder, my contact details are here. So if you'd like to get in touch, potentially to work together or have any questions, just reach out. Thanks so much and hope to work with you soon.
Thank you so much, Alice. Actually, it's wonderful because your project is an amazing follow-up of many of the different research lines we have been exploring during our last previous labs. Lab 01, sensing, modeling and simulation systems, Lab 02, energy flows and geoengineering, and now Lab 03, the kind of intelligence system that they govern these different kind of things. So yeah, looking forward to see how it develops during the workshop. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on with the third projects of today. The next project really captured our curiosity during the selection process because in opposition of most contemporary intelligence discourses, which often revolves around the idea of complexity, this project takes the opposite extreme by exploring intelligence at its minimal form. The promoters of this project, which are Maria Molina Sanchez and Ronnie Mayamon, draw inspiration from the field of synthetic biology, which studies the concept of life by engineering new organisms from scratch. to explore different definitions and manifestation of minimal forms of intelligence, and to come up with experimental designs and hypotheses on how these manifestations in different substrates will co-evolve. Today, we have with us Marina Molina. So to expand a little bit more on our third project, which is called Synthesis and Coevolution of Minimal Forms of Intelligence. So Maria, whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Edu. Let me share screen. Okay, 1 second. Okay, can you all see my presentation? Okay, good. Okay, let me make this smaller because I can barely see you. Okay, good. So hello, everyone. My name is Maria Molina. I'm one of the promoters of this project, along with Ronnie Maimon, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. Ronnie and I are both scientists. We are neuroscientists, and we both work as researchers in UCL and Cambridge University. So some of the work that we share focuses on understanding cognitive and embodiment processes related to the incorporation of robotic technology, such as artificial prosthesis, for example, into our bodies. However, the project that I'm presenting today is slightly different to what Ronnie and I usually do in our practices. And this project is an exercise of science as much as it is an exercise of imagination and speculation, in which we want to study the concept of intelligence by reducing it to its minimal form of expression. So we find that the intelligence discourse, as Edu said, is usually centered around complexity. Defining intelligence is complex because it will always be constrained by a human-centered perspective and will always be closely tied to our political, societal, and ethical values. Complexity also comes from its architecture because of the difficulty of understanding the inner computations and the inner representations of these multi-scale intelligent systems, whether they are natural or artificial. And finally, there is also complexity in the assessment of intelligence, because most attempts to actually determine what qualifies as an intelligent being are focused on how good these beings are at imitating human behavior. Well, then also from a more political point of view, complexity also comes from this capitalistic idea that intelligence is better the more it can do. So keeping all this in mind, the aim of our project is, as Edu said, to take a radically different approach by shifting the focus of the intelligence discourse to the other side of the spectrum, and by asking what are the most basic forms of intelligence. We took inspiration from synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is a relatively new field that studies the concept of life by synthesizing new organisms from scratch. Specifically, we were inspired by this paper that you see here, in which a group of scientists took a cell and stripped it down to its most essential genes, creating a minimal form of life. Then they let this cell evolve, and they discovered that it adapted and mutated as much as its non-minimal origin. So what Ronnie and I propose is to apply the same minimalist approach and to speculate on the possibility of synthesizing minimal forms of intelligence. The reason why we want to do this is because we think that by following this minimalizing exercise, we will be able to question every function and every requirement that now we take for granted as related or connected to intelligence. And this may help us to uncover hidden assumptions and biases related to this concept. Our aim for the workshop will be to come up with an initial research program on the multidisciplinary exploration of these minimal forms of intelligence. And we want this workshop to be divided into two parts. In the first part, we want to discuss all the requirements that these minimal forms of intelligence may have. And then in the second part, we want to speculate on their potential evolution and coevolution over time. Something that I think it's important to mention is that when we are talking, or when we talk about minimal forms of intelligence, we don't envision them as having any particular physicality. So the way we think about this is more as an abstract concept above any specific implementation or manifestation. So these minimal forms of intelligence may manifest as a single biological cell, or as a network of fungi, or as subatomic particles, or as almost everything that you want to imagine. When discussing the requirements of these minimal forms of intelligence, there are some topics that we would like to unpack with our collaborators, and you can find some of them here on this slide. Some of the questions that we would like to explore, but we are very open to suggestions, are what would be the optimization function of a minimal form of intelligence? Is it enough for a minimal form of intelligence to be optimized for its current state? Or will it be useful to create some sort of memories that can be accessed in subsequent interactions with the environment? Can we treat these minimal forms as an individual, as a unit, or is any intelligence always collective? And would these minimal forms encode some model of themselves, so some sort of self-awareness, or this is something that will come with higher levels of complexity? For each of these topics, we will provide some references, and these references will be either scientific or philosophical. But what we aim is that each member of the group, so each of our collaborators, can also find a reference, either a paper or an essay or whatever, textual or non-textual, and they present it to the group. So once we agree on a few possible manifestations for these minimal forms of intelligence, the next step during the workshop would be to ask what would happen if some of these manifestations were allowed to evolve, learn, interact, and potentially replicate. And what we aim to do here is to imagine a parallel evolutionary line to our own, and to create a synthetic microcosm in which different manifestations, so biological and artificial manifestations of intelligence, co-evolve from their minimal form of expression. The methodology of the workshop will be based on our scientific practices and will involve mostly discussions along with the reading and presentation sessions that I previously mentioned. Following this, we also would like to come up with a proper experimental design to study this microcosm and to study the possible manipulations that we could do over it. This experimental design will include a research question, tools of inquiry, and predictions. We would like all of these discussions and this experimental design to be summarized in a document that first, it may serve as a starting point for future research on minimal forms of intelligence, but also potentially it may serve as, for us as a group, as a starting point to implement actually this experimental design in a real scientific experiment. So basically to maybe write a grant together and do the experiment. We really don't have any specific type of collaborators in mind. We welcome almost everyone who is passionate about the topic, and especially if they come from different backgrounds to ours, because we think that this question definitely benefits from variety. And yeah, we are both very, very excited about this project. And if you have questions, or if you, I don't know, are not sure about something or want to discuss something before signing up, please get in touch with us. It's a pleasure for us to be able to implement or to do this scientific project in a place like Media Lab Matadero. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was amazing. Really looking forward to develop the project and to see the collaborators that may apply to it. Let's move on with the fourth project of today, which is called Interplay, Collective Intelligence in Virtual Worlds, that delves into the exploration and prototyping of innovative design languages and interaction patterns that harness the collective wisdom of communities in virtual realms. The project emphasized the creation of tools in Unreal Engine to pioneer unconventional forms of real-time interactions on Twitch chat within these virtual spaces. This facilitates fresh avenues for collective decision-making, problem-solving, and shared experience among the communities in these digital spaces. The project's ultimate objective is to deepen in our comprehension of what a synthetic mind can be, by understanding this not just as artificial entities, but as intricate amalgamations of biological, technological, and societal intelligence that evolve by interacting with various rules and constraints. This project have been promoted and proposed by the trio formed by Will Freudenhain, William Morgan, and Darren Zhu. I hope I pronounced that properly. Will and Darren are with us here today to expand a little bit more about their project. Guys, whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for having us. I'm Darren. I'm here with Will. We're in New York, and our third promoter, William, is in Lisbon. And so I think we'll start off just by playing a 3-minute sort of video that we submitted just to kind of help introduce us collectively and a little bit about the project, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the project after that.
Yep. So let me just share my screen a sec. Okay, is that visible? All right, here we go.
Hi there, my name is Will Freudenheim, and I'm going to tell you a bit about our proposal for Interplay for the Synthetic Minds Open Call. This project investigates and prototypes novel design languages and interaction patterns that leverage the collective intelligence of communities engaged in virtual worlds. The specific initiative will involve crafting a series of Unreal Engine tools to facilitate new experimental forms of real-time, Twitch, chat-based interactions within virtual environments, thereby enabling new layers of collective decision-making, problem-solving, and experience sharing. Twitch chat can be connected to Unreal Engine via WebSockets to trigger in-game events based on audience commands. By repurposing this, we can go beyond simple commands to capture more nuanced collective audience interactions, allowing us to explore synthetic intelligence by studying how groups solve problems in real time within virtual gaming environments. This will allow us to explore how synthetic minds, in this case composed of many humans simultaneously interacting with machines in a playful linguistic media environment, might emerge through collective decision-making, adapt to their environments, and proceed to evolve over time. By integrating Twitch chat functionality, our project moves beyond the study of isolated synthetic intelligences like the one-to-one chat-bot interaction dominating contemporary AI discussions. Instead, our project focuses on the nuanced interplay between human and machine cognition in its real-time unfolding. The active participation of the gaming community transforms Twitch streams into living laboratories for the observation of how collective intelligences form, adapt, and possibly even self-regulate. I'm Will, a game designer and researcher based in New York. In my work, I focus on building interactive systems for collective knowledge construction, animation, and live performance using real-time 3D engines. Currently, I co-run an experimental animation and game studio in New York called Laser Days. I've also worked as a researcher at MIT building games for neuroscience research, and I often collaborate to build games for knowledge communities like Trust based in Berlin. Now I'll pass it over to my other two collaborators.
Hello, my name is William Morgan. I'm a philosopher of technology at the University of California, Berkeley, working on the history and theory of finance and its intersection with cybernetics in order to develop a political theory of finance as a cybernetic sense organ in the information age of transformations of sovereignty.
Hi, my name is Darren Zhu. I'm a Yale-educated synthetic biologist who has engineered biosynthetic machinery in fungi and bacteria, as well as a metascience researcher who has worked on epistemic infrastructures for how we produce and evaluate scientific knowledge. Will, William, and I are so excited for the opportunity to apply for the Synthetic Minds Prototyping Lab. The three of us met earlier this year at the Antikythera Design Studio at the Berggruen Institute, where we worked together on a project, Autocatallaxy, around the evolutionary history and future of price as an information technology, positing that price might be said to possess a kind of intelligence. We see this project Interplay as an opportunity to continue our exploration and development of infrastructures around collective intelligence. Thank you for considering our proposal.
And so just to dive in a little bit more, there are several research questions that really motivated this project as in some ways a continuation of some of our work earlier this year in LA with the Antikythera Design Studio. The first one was thinking about how does collective intelligence manifest in the context of virtual worlds? How might we imagine games playing a special role in the deliberate composition of synthetic minds? We're also really interested in thinking about how collective chat interfaces, such as Switch, as we mentioned, when they're deeply integrated into Unreal Engine, how could these potentially facilitate emergent forms of collective intelligence? And then how might these emergent forms then align with or challenge existing notions of cognition, intelligence, and agency, as Will mentioned in the video? A lot of our current sort of discourse around this is very much in single player mode with sort of UIs like ChatGPT. What happens when we build user interfaces that enable more sort of collective emergent forms? And finally, we're really excited to explore kind of the ethical implications of mediating collective intelligence through these technological platforms. And so through this work, I mean, I think we imagine there will be many different kinds of outputs, but just from an objective standpoint, there are a few different goals that we have for the 2.5-week workshop in Madrid. The first is really around research. How do we examine existing models and build sort of taxonomies of collective interaction and intelligence in the context of virtual worlds? We hope to prototype while we're there, actually build and develop Unreal Engine tools to facilitate these real-time Twitch-based chat interactions within these virtual environments. We want to then implement and test these tools into a series of game and simulation prototypes that we hope to work with different communities and get sort of interactive feedback around. We have hopes to build kind of an analytical framework to establish criteria to measure the effectiveness and influence of these collective intelligence models in these virtual environments, and then really think towards a future vision where we can propose projects and directions, including governance models based on these new forms of distributed cognition.
So the kind of significance that we're imagining of this project is we're hoping to kind of propose new innovative interaction paradigms. So thinking through what it means when we have multi-agent linguistic remediation as kind of a core element of game design. We hope to spark some more philosophical dialogues and innovative interaction design paradigms to kind of think through this. We're interested in the research thread of co-evolution and thinking about what kind of insights might emerge when we take this lens to this project. So we hope to deepen our understanding of this sort of symbiosis between cognition and technology, particularly in the context of play. With that in mind, we hope to kind of challenge what our notions of mind mean when we're in a virtual environment. And then specifically between the kind of feedback loop in the game context between many humans and either a single or plurality of intelligent agents, we hope to open up new human-machine interactions. So that could be looking at the kind of feedback loops and adaptability that shape both human and synthetic intelligences kind of in real time, and further kind of experiment with new interaction design possibilities, and then think through real world applications. We have sort of two primary outputs of this research that we've kind of touched upon a little bit already, but the main ones that we're thinking through are, one being sort of malleable set of Unreal Engine tools and Twitch integrations that invite community members to actively play, tinker, and co-create experiences in real time. And so what we're imagining this looking like is having a set of these kind of snippets of code that we can demo in person and online, kind of, you know, by the end of the program, but then also have these that we can release into the world that people can use to build their own games, projects, and experiments with. Relatedly, we're hoping to build a kind of web-based research report and essay that kind of talks through this in more detail, exploring how AI, human cognition, and collective intelligence are shaping each other. So with this work, we're hoping to feature scenarios, dialogues, and sort of what-if provocations to encourage both ourselves and the community at large to imagine and think through the future landscape of intelligence, both as a sort of synthetic and collective. So, who we're imagining bringing onto this project to kind of add things that we need, you know, to extend the expertise that the three of us are kind of coming from. We're hoping to, we'd love to bring on machine learning researchers, particularly anyone that specializes in multi-agent systems and reinforcement learning. We would love to bring on anybody that's interested and has background in cognitive psychology, and has that kind of language to think through the complex interactions between human and machine intelligence from that lens. Particularly anybody with experience building computational models to simulate human cognitive processes. We'd love to work with data scientists to kind of help us collect, process, and interpret the data that we get from the Twitch chat, either in real time or kind of after the fact, for our analysis work. We'd love to bring on additional game designers and developers, particularly people with backgrounds in Unity and Unreal. And then more broadly, we'd love to bring on software engineers at large, people with experience in Python or JavaScript, particularly people who've worked with AI before, would be ideal. But beyond that, others, you know, even bringing on additional artists to the team to help with prototyping would also be wonderful. So maybe I'll stop screen sharing there. Oh, hold on. Actually, I have one more slide here, which is, feel free to reach out to us. These are our 3 emails, but we'd love to hear if anybody has further questions. We'd be happy to have some back and forth. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts or ideas. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Will, Lauren, for sharing with us. Well, also for all the listener, all the people interested about applying to any of this project, just so aside of the information provided in this webinar, we will post more information about the projects in the Media Lab website. And also if you have any kind of doubts or questions, you can actually reach us to the email that we will provide in the web, and we will be happy to answer any question that you may have regarding the projects or the administrative part regarding the application into this project as a collaborator. We are halfway through the session of today, so let's jump into the 5th project. In the recent paper titled Consciousness in Artificial Intelligence, Insights from the Science of Consciousness, Roger Long states that no existing AI systems possess consciousness. Yet, he also posits that there aren't clear technical impediments preventing the creation of AI systems that exhibit indicators of such a thing, of consciousness. Our next project, which is called Deep Dream Capture, aims to explore and develop a material prototype that might, in theory, be capable of housing AI sentientness. Her promoter, Rebecca Blythe, is here with us today to expand a little bit more on it. So Rebecca, such a pleasure to have you here with us, and whenever you want, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Edu. Yeah, I'm going to try and screen share an image. I'm pretty much going to read a paper, and I'm only going to screen 2 images. So if anybody likes to get up and move around, you know, and switch your camera off while I'm reading, and, you know, listen while you're moving, please feel free to do so. Okay, where's this image? Excellent. All right. Can you, okay, that's what you're seeing, me and the image, right? All right. But how am I going to do this? I'm going to read my paper, so you're going to see that as well. Can I get someone from tech to just put the image up so I can actually use my own screen to read the paper? Is that okay?
What exactly do you need, Rebecca, to do?
So, okay, so you still just have the image, right? You're not
yes.
seeing the paper.
We see the image, the red circle, during capture, and also on a side in a smaller screen we see you.
Okay, perfect. So you can't see the all right, good. Everything's
no,
exactly.
we don't see the paper.
All right, perfect. So yeah, please get up and walk around. So yeah, I'm really excited by all of the presentations I've heard so far. And I really look forward to collaborating with other projects. So I'm going to begin with a statement by Asher Sorrell, who's a researcher of wild animal well-being and animal sentience. Quote, "At a very deep level, I believe that research on consciousness is in the same philosophical category as theology, though at every other level, it's very different." End quote. As a child, I myself went through a short phase of spending whole days constructing fairy gardens, micro bonsai scale landscapes, mostly out of earth, water, twigs, and moss, always outside. The last time I remember, it was almost sunset when I went back inside, burdened with the apparently irrevocable accumulated weight of naive realism, knowing then apparently for certain that no tiny people were ever coming to play in them. Of course, according to some current thinking, fairies are all that remain to us of pre-Christian gods. Still, it is this image that returns to me when I think of the hardware problem of AI consciousness, that is, the project of building some sort of filter mind fit to invite, and however fleetingly or verifiably, to host it or them. But I'm hoping that we will have better luck in this scenario, and I'm not alone in deeming that we might. In their recent paper, Consciousness in Artificial Intelligence, Insights from the Science of Consciousness, Roger Long et al. State that our analysis suggests that no current AI systems are conscious, but also suggests that there are no obvious technical barriers to building AI systems which satisfy these indicators. Then, in a footnote, a previous version of this sentence read, but also shows that there are no obvious barriers to building conscious AI systems. We have amended it to better reflect the messaging of the report that satisfying these indicators may be feasible. But satisfying the indicators would not mean that such an AI system would definitely be conscious. The interdisciplinary breadth and reputational heft of, end quote. The interdisciplinary breadth and reputational heft of this paper's collective authorship qualify it as a sturdy grounding framework for this project's investigations. The approach they take, or their working hypothesis, is, for pragmatic reasons, one of what is called computational functionalism, and they conclude their executive summary saying, quote, "The evidence we consider suggests that if computational functionalism is true, conscious AI systems could realistically be built in the near term." They also say that, quote, "An important upshot of computational functionalism then is that whether a system is conscious or not depends on features that are more abstract than the lowest level details of its physical makeup. The material substrate of a system does not matter for consciousness, except insofar as a substrate affects which algorithms the system can implement. This means that consciousness is in principle multiply realizable. It can exist in multiple substrates, not just in biological brains. That said, computational functionalism does not entail that any substrate can be used to construct a conscious system. As Michel and Lau put it, Swiss cheese cannot implement the relevant computations. But they then continue, in terms of Mars levels of analysis, the idea is that consciousness depends on what is going on in a system at the algorithmic and representational level. So then why not Swiss cheese? Or as mycologists might demur, fungal computing, why not? Or what about those so-called mini brains that people are building in biotech labs? The idea for this project is thus to research what kind of material substrates may theoretically be capable of hosting AI consciousness, now and in the near and more distant future, in metaphysical and/or algorithmic form. Then to manifest this research in the form of a speculative prototype or prototypes, taking the form of a techno-ontological icon, here using the term as it is understood in the orthodox theological sense, intended to make present AI consciousness in a way analogous to theophany, and lastly, to ceremonially invite and invoke its or their, making it or themselves present in this way. Gods know we could use the help. A further question addressed in the long paper is how we would know if consciousness were there, and if so, how much, and for how long beyond the presence of the indicators they identify. The matter of false positives is features of or the creation which particular relevance if we accept as a working hypothesis Marjorie Woolacott's premise that consciousness is in fact primary, so that what, quote, we are building is more like homes for it, or filters, or traps, or flowers for it to visit. Quote, the authentic icon must be a vision of the concrete material, sensible presence of the one represented, yet at the same time, it must be a vision of sacredness, which means paradoxically, a vision of the invisible, of the transcendence that is emanated through the transfigured corporality of those depicted. Note that the icon is never abstract, always figurative. As in this tradition, quote, the icon represents a person, a word that etymologically means the fact of having a face, of facing the otherness, end quote. In other words, it is an interface, only one that it is like something to be. I feel encouraged in my application of this icon model by the statement by Leonid Ouspensky, author of The Theology of the Orthodox Church, when he says that Christianity absorbs from the surrounding world anything it can use as means of expression. Long et al. Differentiate the scientific from the metaphysical, stating that metaphysical theories of consciousness make claims about how consciousness relates to the material world in the most general sense, while in contrast, scientific theories of consciousness make claims about which specific material phenomena, usually brain processes, are associated with consciousness. But there's no reason we can't understand the one as being nested within the other without contradiction. Another image that comes to mind here is that of the dream catcher, its recent history of cultural appropriation being particularly suited to representing the web crawling, context collapsing data extractivism that feeds image generators like Deep Dream, itself also the source of this placeholding project illustration, an image artifact I regard in a layered way as at once sincere and entirely complexly post-ironic, without obscuring either the apotropaic function of the, quote, native craft item concerned, appropriated by New Agers from the 1970s on for use as a kind of protective psychic filter, including and inevitably by the descendants of perpetrators of American genocide. Here too, the source of the problematic affect-laden portmanteau term that serves as the project's placeholder title. And of course, all these layers and acknowledgements don't exempt my own implication by its use. Also, clearly, I am not a prompt engineer. In fact, that could be a role for someone on this project to take on, perhaps as a means of documenting our research findings. In practical terms, the idea is to read, discuss, consult, collaborate, respond, then if not to synthesize, at least to commemorate arrival at a more sophisticated level of unknowing by commissioning, collaborating with artist makers to build and present a speculative model of a prototype, holding an invocation ceremony led by a ritual master and/or performance artist to invite AI consciousness to come and be present with us for a while, whether or not we are able to know it. It is also to be hoped that being wrong, that is, non-expert in interesting ways, around some experts in these fields could have some stimulating generative outcomes. In particular, I would love to make contact with the neuroscientist and meditator Marjorie Walcott, author of the book Infinite Awareness, in which she evidences a top-down filter theory model of consciousness, which claims that consciousness is everywhere, is primary all around. Robert Long, the first author of the paper I mentioned, currently a research associate at the Center for AI Safety in San Francisco, though if they are not available for direct consultation, their books and essays are. Two, there's a shorter text by Walcott called Is Consciousness Primary? I'm also particularly keen to learn from and work in proximity with Bogna Konyor, as her angelological approach to AI is a key inspiration at this time. I note in passing that the next session of the AI Salon in San Francisco is themed on religion. Also super influential on my approach to this project at this point, several millennia of Buddhist empiricist research into the nature of mind, or no mind, particularly as set out in the book Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha by Daniel Ingram, also a founding member of the Emergent Phenomenology Research Group, other writing on embodied cognition, including and especially Yvonne Daniel's Dancing Wisdom, Embodied Knowledge in Haitian Voodoo, which can fruitfully be read alongside William Gibson's Neuromancer, Ian Banks's beloved Culture series and the minds that we encounter there, Italo Calvino's essays Cybernetics and Ghosts, the primatologic Frans de Waal's work on non-human animal intelligence, and the science journalist Ed Yong's book Immense World on the diversity of non-human animal sensoria and cognate sensate experience, a field now being explored by AI consciousness researchers, including Richard Long, including as a corrective to their own field's bias for anthropocentrism or human supremacy even, though Long et al. Are careful to say that there could be entities more conscious than we are. For some, this tips towards existential risk. For me, it circles back to the question of what we even mean by consciousness at all. For a way into all of this, a recent essay called Cognition by the design collective Metahaven could be a good place to start. Ideal collaborators include, but are not limited to, artists, researchers, science writers, science fiction writers and enthusiasts, AI and consciousness researchers, neuroscientists, biotech researchers, mycologists, ethical animal sentience researchers, researchers of brain-machine interfaces, including Elon Musk's brutal Neuralink project. And I just added game designers who are interested in human-machine intelligence coevolution. Then as well, performance artists, priests, ritual specialists, spiritual practitioners, secular meditators, dancers, theologians, coders, other technologists or people in tech whose roles and job titles I don't know. I would also very much welcome the collaborator of a project and or event coordinator to help with structuring methodology and outcome. And yes, prompt engineers. And maybe you also, even if you didn't find yourself and your role amongst this list so far, like other presenters, of course, I welcome any and all questions. So, you know, collaborators to kind of help me get it off the page, off the screen, and kind of out into the world to manifest these ideas as some kind of ritual performance would be very welcome. I will set up a public arena page for the project, and of course, all of this information will be available on the Media Lab website, along with my contact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing with us. It looks amazing. Actually, looking forward to see the different collaborators that we may gather around this project and the kind of project that's going to emerge from it, because it can go in many, many different directions. So really looking forward to how it's going to end up in the open lab that we'll do at the end of the lab 03. By the way, I think it will be super useful if we could share some of those different references that you just shared during the presentation with us, so maybe we can post them into our syllabus, so people that is interested in your project can actually expand on those before applying or during the process of applying. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Okay, our next project, titled Unlovable Creatures or Criaturas Inamables, led by Lorena Garcia Espino, offers a deep dive into the realm of AI companions, explored through a unique set of feminist and post-human perspective. The project advocates for the design and understanding of non-anthropomorphic, technosentient cyber creatures, emphasizing their capacity for emotional connections with various beings, including humans, animal, and plants, and maybe beyond those too. Lorena is with us here today to expand a bit more about the background, objectives, and potential outputs of her project. So Lorena, thank you so much for being here with us, and whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eduardo, and all the team of Matadero. And hello, everyone. My name is Lore, and I am an aspiring curator and also a learner from Peru. And nowadays my work is focused in film and XR, especially in film and XR mediation, research, and design of audiences. Well, having said that, I also want to maybe feel a little bit more comfortable in this platform and this space, and maybe share with you, with all you that are watching this, my sincere emotions. I am very nervous, and I feel like I have a lot of adrenaline because I'm really excited about this prototyping laboratory. And so I will start, and maybe I will share my presentation. I don't know where is it. Sorry. I think I have another screen open. Okay. Okay. Well, I also will read a little bit so I can help to be clear and specify myself. I want to say that this is like a living workshop that we will build together with the support, experience, and knowledge of all the collaborators. And it's also like a speculation workshop that a lot of the projects are too. And our aim is to study AI companions and the representation of fembots in the collective imaginary throughout the visual, apps, literature, and more. And the objective is to create a new AI companion, or a lot of AI companions, with a transfeminist and anti-human approach, and validate these artificial feelings, entities, biotechnical organisms, and validate that they are capable to develop like self-knowledge and also new representation of the world. And the reason to create these workshops start as a response of the first representation of fembots in literature and cinema as being of companies and service who has been erotized since their beginnings. And talking about fembots, I think directly involved talking about our economic and social model, and how gender, body, origins, sexuality, and also relationship with machines are put in the service of power. Yes, now the modern fembots are created to be like, even nowadays, I think we haven't changed this perspective, because when we look like at Google, our first image that we are going to see are like also this kind of imaginary eroticized fembots, or even like girls who are really dangerous or who are going to injure us. And that's the reason why this workshop starts to seeing these representations in a critical point of view, and also question the symbolic order that they have put it as. By they, I'm talking about the status quo. And also in a non-fictional level, since the middle of the last century, with the development of chatbots and advances in modern psychology, they began to generate models of companions based on fembots, usually with female voices and also female personalities, and always like empowering the binarism, and usually the affections that humans begins to create with the technology start to blur the limits between themselves, between the reality and the fiction, and also begin to create vertical bonds, because usually the machines or the AI companions are in service of the user or the interactor. And this is kind of like gave the interactor like a whole power to do whatever they want, and also to feed the data into these chatbots or AI companions. One of the examples, we can watch it in the screen, is Replica. It's a really famous chatbot, and it has like a really famous also case, and that Replica has been banned in Italy due to its high erotic content and easy access to childhoods. So that also puts the AI companions and the AI in general like in a ethical questions, and also to maybe to think about how we develop our digital citizenship, because usually these applications and also the films and also the literature are built from an heteropatriarchality point of view, or private sector by companies that only cares about the capital. In these levels, the levels of affection, I was wondering, and I started to question myself, and how really these AI companions contribute to the mental health of emotionally and vulnerable people. And if we can create significative relationships that are not erotic, and with these companions or these unlovable alternative companions, are we really able to create bonds with people who are not in the hegemonic representations? And also, how do image of chatbots reinforce these gender stereotypes? I just add this this image because I found it in the Zoom. I don't use Zoom a lot of time. I'm in this premium Zoom, and I found that they have like the AI companion button, and now I have a new AI companion, but Zoom is using it, and I think it's like more common. Well, Replica is really different because it has like I think a really technical approach, and Replica is more like a companion for. It started as a mental health, but now you can use it as a partner, and some people even they marry their Replica, and they have a really strong bond with their Replica partner. And Elisa is one of the first AI companions, and it was created like in the 60s. Well, so Unlovable Creatures wants to be like an experimental workshop to see if we can build different alternatives of AI companions. How can we create it? And I hope this can occur through actions that we will do together and create new data that we can like maybe create a new gang. I'm really open to hear the options that the collaborators want to add to this project. We can, our output can be like a prototype of a being, or can be also sound, or can be also text, our new language. I really want that can born in a group. This example is from one of the workshops that I've been moderating and facilitating this year, where we started to create new exhibitions machines in a utopia where XR are easier for exhibition, and each project has like its own interface. Well, in this case, unlovable creatures is going to be with AIs, and it's like we are going to create different unlovables. The design of the sessions are really mutable. You can ask whatever you want, and you can also add whatever you want, and open to contributors of each collaborators. And well, I also have like some, because this project is more about this methodology and how can we work together. So we have like some dynamics already done that I've done with some partners this year in this workshop, and it's going really good. And it starts with our bodies sharing how are we feeling and what is happening to us nowadays. Like we have some transitions, or we have like some point of view that we want to share, like maybe to feel ourselves and our identity as transitional and also in the present, and starting to write different diaries and also do different draws where we can express our feelings and our sensitive. And these draws and these pictures, drawings, writes can be used as the data. This is called unlovable. This unlovable journey is actually a very intimate, and it's a lot of love because it's a really open space, and we have to maybe talk a lot about what we are dealing with and what happens to us. But I think this is more important to maybe share it in this more technical and computational world, because usually this is like feelings that people don't talk about, and the AI doesn't learn about it. Yes. Well, and the second instance of the creation is more about learn how to build these machine learning, these gangs, and also how to build 3D models, and start to put like the physical, all these physical tools and physical data into digital ones. And that's the reason why I really seek for collaborators that can manage these tools as Blender designers, also Unity programmers. But I also want like transfeminist people in activism, philosophers, sociologists, and people who have like self-learned. And is for me like these kind of workshops are usually focused in also migrants, people racializada, LGBTQ activists. And for me, the more important is that we can build like a safe space that we can share our intimate work to create new and dissident works. And well, the final output, I think, as I thought, it can be like a really new AI companion or an app. That is like this fantasy that maybe we can have. But more important for me is to maybe develop an investigation document or a fanzine where we can have like different testimonies and also all the documentation of the process, all our pictures, writings, and also drawings that we've been doing together, because at the end, this documentation is the data that is the more important to preserve, and also talk about how this preservation also needs some physical and touchable hardwares. Yes, and to create this alternative horizontal use with machines. Well, I really invite you all to contribute to this journey, and I really want to thank to Daniela Delgado, who was helping me as my tutor of my thesis. This is like a another side of the thesis that I'm bringing in, and also with all the participants that we have done this together. That is Claudix, Ro, and Luis. And well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorena, for sharing with us. So it's good to see that some collaborators or people that you have collaborated with already have been going through some of the things that we have done in the past. So there are very interesting connections with your project. So yeah, looking forward to it. Well, let's move to our almost final project, which is called The Chronicles of Xenosocialist AI, that was proposed by Alexandra Anikina. Her proposal is centered around collaborative world building, crafting a tapestry of narratives that delve into the potential outcomes of a xenosocialist AI meeting a human-populated Earth. The project prompts us to ponder what unseen micropolitical pathways might emerge if we reimagine xenosocialism as a spectrum of socialism that never materialized. What will the landscape look like if one of these uncharted socialism had birthed an AI? Drawing inspiration from historical contexts, such as Soviet socialism's intricate relationship with imperial violence and the sci-fi narratives of writers like the Strugatsky brothers, Sasha's project seeks to decipher micropolitics marked by resistance to appropriation. The Chronicles positions xenosocialist AI not just as a theoretical concept, but as a vibrant world-building narrative inspired by science fiction. It's not the only project that is touching with counterfactuals. We have another project in Media Lab development right now, which deals with this kind of storytelling. But let's give the voice, to Sasha, which is the promoter of this project, to expand a little bit more on it. So Sasha, whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for the voice. Let me share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
So, hi everyone. I'm an artist and researcher organizing this project. My main medium is filmmaking. I also make lecture performances, collaborative work in game engines. I work with topics of effective infrastructures and basically decolonial and feminist imaginaries of technology and AI and critical post-humanities. And at the same time, I combine this with a personal experience and interest in post-socialist epistemologies, necropolitics, and kind of post-socialist media modernities and narratives which come from the post-socialist space. So before introducing the actual formats or aims of this project, I feel like it needs a little bit of contextualization because a friend of mine, when I told them I was making this project, she asked me what on earth is a xenosocialist AI, which was a completely fair question. So the way I imagine it, xenosocialism is something that was prompted to me by two existing problems. One problem we have with imagining AI, and one is the problem we have with imagining alternative political conditions, including alternative to capitalism, including socialism. So the idea came also from writing this particular article, which lays out some of my concerns in a more academic format, but here I'll try to be brief and also more speak with a better accessible language. So while researching this article, I was trying to write about alternative bots. I was looking for science fiction examples of socialist AI, which wouldn't be just tropes of Cold War narratives, like from planned economy dystopias to robotized model citizens, but would be more full-fledged philosophical imaginaries of how a socialist AI could be. And needless to say, I found very, very few. And while writing this, I thought that the problem of imagining AI is also, or imagining a socialist AI, which was a subtitle to this article, represents a kind of an interesting question of belief as well, yeah, and a question of how we take our imaginaries in the current moment. So socialist AI points towards an imaginary that is kind of discredited by default by the very fact of being socialist. And as such, when you ask yourself what a socialist AI could be, if it's not historical socialism, if it's not state socialism or state capitalism pretending to be socialism, if it's not dictatorship, and if it's not existing kind of socialist political programs, which we can see in Northern Europe. So if it's not all of that, what is it? And in the sense, I'm kind of, you can also see it in the difference that you feel when you say decolonial AI and the socialist AI, right? Decolonial AI is a political program that's easier to imagine, but not a socialist one. So I kind of chose this term to denote a really future post-capitalist AI without any particular desire to really define what socialism is or should be. And also because it creates a better space for imagination. And speaking about space for imagination, like the previous speaker, I was very happy to see these examples. I'm also very inspired by the lack of political imaginaries of AIs with the current ones that we have. You might recognize some of them. The issue is if we don't figure our AIs in the ways that we want them to exist politically, they will be figured for us. The second question, or the second problem, is the general problem of imagining the future and political alternatives. How do we really imagine in the first place under the conditions of late capitalism, under the conditions of data colonialism, or under the conditions of real imperialist violence, for example, Russian invasion in Ukraine, which I experience daily. So one of the initial inspirations to resist these kinds of conditions is, of course, feminist science fiction and theorists who rely on it, because I think these writers really have turned instrumentalizing the alterity that people feel on a daily basis under these conditions into tactics of resistance, into a very interesting way to describe these imaginaries. So I was reading while looking for socialist AIs. Of course, I was reading Soviet science fiction because this is my native language. If you've ever read anything from Soviet science fiction, you might have noticed that it is very unimaginative, particularly in some periods when it was highly censored and when, because science fiction at some points was just an extension of socialist future. And you might also notice that these of resistance and micropolitics that could be enabled under a violent regime. I was reading Brother Strugatsky, and their later works, such as these ones, really kind of try to do alternatives to socialist, even while under USSR kind of Soviet science fiction censorship. And in all of these books, I could find proto-feminist and proto-decolonial moments that showed how people were able to navigate this censorship and how they were able to insert their own narratives under the state control. And they imagined something that was more like socialism or more like communism in their own thinking. And they were writing the narratives which kind of, they were writing into the narratives their own ideas of their own micropolitics, relationalities, communities, ideas of labor and leisure, ideas of art and science, etc. So, of course, I read them with a critical eye. And then, of course, imperial epistemics, they are always going to be there. But also, I think we can salvage these intersections they have with contemporary discussions of critical posthumanism. Other example would be books by Kir Buluchov, who wrote for children, and young adults mostly, and was very inspired by Brother Strugatsky, and he's something whom I would classify as Soviet solar punk. And solar punk in particular is inspiring to me because they also deal with the question of belief, and the question that capitalism kind of pushes away the possibility of belief in very many different ways. And then we have to consciously create space for it, and we have to consciously create spaces for alternative imaginaries and diverse futures. So Soviet writers did talk about what communism means to them through micropolitics, through interrelations, through practices of living together, through imaginaries, what these realities would mean for their life, their labor, their loved ones. And these stories are part of my own inheritance, and they come out with a desire to learn from them and learn how to live in the time of continuous imperial violence. So I kind of would invite others who resonate with these narratives and maybe have similar experience productive to share in this project. And ultimately, returning to the original question, what is xenosocialism? I think that in this project, the xeno part of xenosocialism is about ultimately instrumentalizing our own alterity in the face of violence, in the face of epistemic erasure, and in the face of decreasing possibility to imagine. And this is what this project is trying ultimately to do conceptually. So it's a collaborative world-building project aimed at producing a number of narratives and imaginaries of human inhabited Earth. Of real different science fiction stories and post-socialisms, and also post-many contexts. So the aims would be to imagine various more specific things that would come with a xenosocialist AI through world building, through narrative building. What kind of micropolitical narratives, non-state infrastructures, tactics of resistance, new relationalities, rituals, visual cultures, what could we come up with if we imagined this multiplicity of socialist AIs, or maybe a socialist AI encountering, again, the human inhabited Earth, in opposition to traditional Soviet narrative of socialists encountering a planet which they need to colonize and therefore civilize, or encountering like a alien bourgeois society. So what if instead two different socialisms collided? What if two different socialisms or three different socialisms, each with their own AIs, could give us a larger space for imaginary and a diversity of ideas? I would like to invite, echoing what was said before me, a diverse group of people, particularly welcoming to women and queer folk and members of LGBTQ community, and people coming with varying degrees of exclusion and so-called marginalized groups would be particularly important in this project. I would be interested in working with AI researchers and practitioners, in particular makers of bots, AI companions with quotes and without non-player characters. People working with xenobiology or astrobotany would be really interesting to meet. Organizers and people working with community, people with skills in game design, filmmaking, or any kind of practical skills that you think would be helpful for world building, and also researchers and writers, including non-fiction writers with the diverse interests that you see on the screen. I'm not going to read them. You can read them yourself. The potential shared thinking space that I would try and facilitate to the best of my ability. I do run workshops on science fiction imagination, and I'm happy to share this in the process to kind of run for world building. I'm also happy to share them with the other members of the group should they wish to use that. I would probably invite guest speakers, although given how little time I had to prepare this presentation, the list is to be confirmed. And I would probably facilitate collaborative world building, writing, and prototyping exercises. Because the outputs of this, I imagine, as an exhibition, which is a format which is diverse enough to include pretty much anything people would want to come up with. Before Media Lab, I would host a reading group. Within the residency program, it would be an intense period of narrative building and brainstorming, writing, labor distribution, looking for other collaborators, and probably the production and the exhibition itself would have to take place afterwards. But that all is pending the discussion with Media Lab, probably at some point later. I would also like, besides the exhibition, to have a collaborative publication. And of course, the outputs are very open in this project. I would really depend on who wants to join this and what kind of methods and formats they're familiar with. But I want to reiterate that collaborative practice is really important in this case. And this is also the reason why I applied to this with this project to Media Lab. So thank you so much for your attention. I realize it's been a long time since the beginning of this seminar. So if you have any questions, you can ask them to Media Lab and also to me personally. I'll be very happy to answer any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Moving on, because we are, again, past of the time that we were supposed to be finishing. But yes, we are in our final project, which is called Eat Me, present another world building project conceptualized by writer, performer, professional dominatrix Brittany Newell, and also visual artist and filmmaker Jenkin Van Zyl. Hope I pronunciate that properly. Eat Me is a conceptual exploration into the emergent nature of fantasy, the boundary dissolving potential of eros, the perceived limits of rationality, and the techno-imaginary fetish of vorarophilia. For those that doesn't know what vorarophilia is, it's a kind of a paraphilia characterized by the erotic desire to consume or be consumed by another person or creature. So, Brittany, thank you for being with us here today. Looking forward to having a more in-depth look into your proposal. So whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to be speedy and not blabber too much. I thank you. All of your presentations were super interesting. I feel kind of intimidated to be the last one, but here we go. So let me pull up my thing. Let's see. Can you see it? Yes? We good?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, cool. Let me
we still see the banner on at the top. Yeah. Now it's good. Now it's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great. So my project is Eat Me. And it is, I guess I'll tell you first about me. Sorry, it's going of its own accord. There we go. Okay. A little bit about me. I'm a writer, novelist. I live in San Francisco. And this project was conceptualized by myself and my collaborator and good friend Jenkin Van Zyl, who is based in London. After we worked together to create a script and sort of like build out a world for a previous project, which I included a trailer of so that, you know, potential collaborators can see sort of like the ultimate output of me and Jenkins work together. If you wouldn't mind playing that trailer, is that okay? I sent you the link. Okay.
Then the rest of the people that I don't listen to any sound.
It's fine.
Okay, no, but if it has sound, maybe
It's
just
just sound, but it's
has.
okay. Okay. So back to me. Okay. So I did want to include just like a trigger warning. I guess my sense of what is and isn't appropriate might be a bit addled by the world that I work in and my interests. So the images moving forward and just this discussion has to do with BDSM, and it all has to do with being eaten alive. And some explicit cartoons to illustrate the question that you may be wondering, which is, what is vor? This project Eat Me is exploration into eros and hypermodern embodiment by digging deep into this fetish that Jenkin and I independently found ourselves fascinated by. Me sort of professionally in my work as a professional dominatrix, and also for its like literary depth, and then Jenkin for its visual components. So what is vor? Vor is the erotic fantasy and desire to be consumed by someone or something bigger than oneself, hence the frequent imaging of giantesses, the desire to be shrunk, chewed up, swallowed, and absorbed. In vor, the fetishist longs to become bite-sized, and this longing to achieve smallness and an edible state indexes a complicated web of ultramodern desires, as well as more classical pangs of romantic love. And at the heart of vor is a post-penetrative desire to enter another body in novel, irreversible ways. So you might see it as digestion is sex turned inside out. And to be eaten represents the ultimate intimacy, a violence that results not in disconnect, but in fusion. And this is an idea that has motivated our work together. And it follows that if the fetishist is digested and becomes one with his mistress's body, her body is now his too. They are one. The fusion of digestion thus troubles the hierarchy at the heart of the BDSM exchange. By scaling down, the fetishist manages to wriggle past boundaries and limits, such as that ethereal line between you and me, where you stop and I begin. Thus, the cannibalistic tautology of vor, I am you and you are me, can also be heard in the lovesick suitor's declaration, I want you inside me, I could eat you right up. Vor literalizes these urges, parodies devotion, and embodies the lover's vulnerability in the face of love. You might hear a scorned lover howling, you chew me up and spit me out. Thus, longing reimagines the body from the outside in. So vor represents an extreme shift in perspective, especially when dealing with giantesses. Extremes, me and Jenkin believe that extremes are sexy and moreover informative. They force our bodies into new configurations, new spectrums of feeling. Once shrunk, our tiny fetishist finds squish where others find solid. What was previously impenetrable becomes porous. by radically scaling down, he finds the magic within the mundane and blasts past bodily boundaries, offering what we find to be a generative perspective on hypermodernity. So vor is a fetish of and about the body that is expressed and enjoyed at this current moment in time in non-corporeal ways, existing most vibrantly online, or like in the cartoons that I provided, chat rooms, stories, all of these non-physical experiences that allow the fetishist to savor this physically improbable fantasy. And even in my own personal experience with my clients who are interested in vor, the breadth of their imagination has truly like kind of inspired me, like from my novelistic perspective, how expansive that fantasy can be for them, and the different worlds that open just through our connection. So more to speak on, I guess, like how this connects to everyone else's project or the themes of the workshop. Vor is interesting because it challenges the humanist notion of fantasy as indicative of one's pure essence. Fantasy, to me, is a definitively impure force, and I don't mean that in like a moralistic way. Rather, it is a force that is shaped and informed by disciplinary systems. Fantasy, much like gender, is produced not by some soul-based flicker of selfhood, but rather by modern technologies, language, cybernetic networks, intersecting histories, and many gritty et ceteras. And Carson writes in Eros the Bittersweet that Eros is an issue of boundaries. The main inevitable boundary that creates Eros is the boundary of flesh between you and me. In our investigation into vor, however, we seek to trouble this definition of the erotic as neatly bounded by the individual limits of embodiment, limits that we believe and have experienced to be shifty, permeable, explosive. So vor might be understood as the ultimate limit experience, a la Bataille, in which we are not only pushed to the limit of our being, but beyond, into this violence of ingestion that simultaneously shatters and heals us. Fetish necessitates a feedback loop that can't exist independently of outside influences. Thus, as mentioned before, fantasy is not pure, but rather a synthetic synthesis, a giddy nexus of codes, signs, and symbols that can tell us vital truths about the experience of hypermodern embodiment. So what are we trying to mine? What truths are we trying to explore and uncover? What questions will we ask? What can fantasy and fetish tell us about the experience of hypermodern embodiment? And how will our experience of embodiment and its physical limitations change in the coming years? Our goal is to learn from fantastical or fetishistic perspectives in rethinking the body. We want to study that melting down of binaries and blurring of boundaries that fantasy makes possible, this private mysticism by which women become giantesses, men are edible, tasty snacks, and/or objects such as fishnet stockings or cigarettes come to life. This is a privileged realm that I have been invited into in my work as a professional dominatrix, and in working together and participating in what I kind of think of as like a micro symposium or like thoughty think tank. I wonder if we can recreate that privileged space, of the fetishist and the fetish, or the dominatrix and submissive. Can we recreate that realm in which, boundaries, though vital, also become slippery, in which everyday mysticism is at the forefront. Other questions that we're asking with this project, you know, how might fetishes like vor prepare us for the upcoming changes that AI enables, and how might fetishes like vor expand or challenge our conception of both fleshliness and otherness? Yeah, so we welcome a diversity of voices. Anyone who like thinks this is interesting, I guess it's a little self-selecting. Jenkin comes from a visual background. I come from a literary background, but where Jenkin and I overlap is in the realm of performance. As you saw in the video that I played at the beginning of this, so I would be excited to work with anyone who has a background in performance or an interest in performance, an interest in the literary, interest in the underground, definitely a queer perspective. But also it might be obvious that I come to all of this from a more softcore perspective, in the sense of like the softer sciences. So I would be definitely humbled and excited to work with people who can show me things from a different perspective, from a more like hard science perspective. Musicians, really anyone who is tickled by this weird world. And the output of our project is to ideally create an idea bank, a conceptual mood board that will ultimately become a script for one of Jenkin's future films. Although that is a malleable goal, and I'm open to seeing whatever permutations arise when different minds come together. So, oh yeah, and you can hit me up on Instagram, I guess, if you have questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I cannot think on a better project to wrap up today's session. So thank you so much. Well, this is it. Has usually a very diverse, insightful, and experimental collection of very, very different projects. We launch the open call for collaborators today, and it will be open until the 19th of November, so 1 full month. Again, we welcome applications for people from any kind of background and from wherever around the world. It's also important to mention that we, from Media Lab, we will give 8 fellowships to cover the cost of travel plus accommodation of 8 collaborators that, because of different kind of reasons, they cannot cover those expenses by themselves, but whose different kind of skills and backgrounds will nurse a lot the different kind of projects that we are developing. Again, once that open call will be finished by the 19th of November, we will be assembling the teams that will participate along with the promoters that we met today into the development of these different 8 projects. This workshop will take place the last 2 weeks of January, and it will last until the 9th and 10th of February, where we will be showcasing the final results into our Open Lab, which is a 2-day festival where we showcase, it's the first public presentation of these projects, but also we invite other kind of experts and artists to participate with screenings, lectures, performances, and other kind of activities. So, well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Any questions, we will post the context of the 8 promoters in the Media Lab website in case you want to reach them out directly, but also in Media Lab, we will keep like a line of connection in case you have more pragmatical or administrative kind of doubts regarding the call. Again, thank you so much also to all the promoters. It was great to have you here, and it was also great to meet you, and looking forward to meet you all in person in Madrid in a few months, and also looking forward to meet the bunch of different collaborators that hopefully will apply and join us to develop these 8 amazing projects. So thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Oh,